Shabbat Shalom, and I hope you're out there, everybody. Rabbi Ken, sorry, just some more, another week, another technical difficulty, but thank goodness for the iPhone. I hope that whether you're on Facebook Live or you are on Shalom.com, I hope that you are seeing me and hearing me, and we're vibing, whatever, on this Shabbat morning. I see some numbers, so I take it that there are people there, and some comments are going to come up. And there's Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Shabbat Shalom. Come on, everybody. There's still time to take your virtual seats. As I always say, Jewish events in Hawaii do not start on time, so we're just right. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Eddie. Come on in, everybody. Parshat Shelach or Shelach Lecha. And Avi, come on in. Yeah, there we go. Come on in, everybody. Gloria, I hope you're not far behind. Maverick, here we go. Oh, gosh. You guys are become old friends. And there's the Sefaria link for this morning's Parsha. And the numbers are going up. That's great. Yay. Well, I think it's a hangover from last night's beautiful Shabbat service. We had a record number of people back with us in person, and, of course, everybody viewing, and also honoring a true, what we call a klei bracha, a vessel, a portal of blessing. That would be our administrator, temple administrator Stephanie, who is helping me always through these technical difficulties. So here we go. We are in Numbers chapter 13. 13's a good number in Judaism, right? We know that. Jerry, come on in, everybody. Here we go. This is Shelach or Shelach Lecha. Interesting fun fact. Where have you heard Lecha in a title of a Torah portion before? Way back when in Genesis, with Abraham's encounter with the divine presence. That would be Lech Lecha. God says, go forth, but also it can be taken as go to yourself. And so when God speaks to Moses, I'm getting ahead of myself. We have to offer a blessing before I get. There's so much to talk about. I want to get going, but it's a blessing to see your names on my screen. So Portia, everybody, please join me in offering Simon these words, a blessing for being together. There's Gloria. Now it's a blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who gives us the opportunity to aspire towards holiness, towards deep and profound connection to oneness through fulfillment of mitzvot, including the mitzvah to engage in the study of Torah. I want to dedicate this morning's Torah study to three tzaddikim, three righteous souls whom we remember this Shabbat. One is on the actually first anniversary of her death, Louise Langlieb, beloved mother of Barry Langlieb, a real mensch, who embodies just the beautiful soul of his mom, blessed memory. Also, behind me over my shoulder, you see our beloved scholar in residence, Rabbi Morris Goldfarb, Ol Shalom, blessed memory, his yard site too, this Shabbat. And finally, also someone, as I said last night, whose impact on me, I believe, really guided me in sitting here this morning studying Torah with you, which is my father, Stanley Aronowitz, of blessed memory, Shmuel David ben Moshe V'Sarah. So for all those and all the tzaddikim, let's get going here. So we have the beginning, Shelach Lecha, which can mean God telling Moses, send forth, send out there into the world, actually to the land of Canaan, land of Israel, spies, or people, men of renown, leaders of each of the 12 tribes, to go scout out and see what this land is like, and see what peoples are there, what it's going to be like to enter the land. But it also can mean send to yourself, in a sense as well. So, Larry Diane, right on. Okay, beautiful. So, it's a really beautiful or powerful narrative. So I don't want to interrupt the telling of it, but starting with chapter 13. So Moses, God says to Moses, send men, anashim, to Taturu, to scout out the land of Canaan. I'm giving to you, the children of Israel. And then they pick a rosh ahead of each tribe, which is listed there, enumerated. One interesting name, or actually two interesting names, are in verse 8. From the tribe of Ephraim, the tribe of the son of Joseph, is Hosea, okay, who's going to become his name's going to be changed by the end of this portion. And also, where's the other one? And also 2 verses up, verse 6, from the tribe of Judah, Caleb, the son of Yefuneh. Oh, Jonathan. All right, here we go. Right, now we can go. Thanks again, Jonathan. Here with us. Now we can continue. So all these men of renown, or the heads of their tribes, are sent out to the land of Canaan, and they scout out the land, the wilderness of Zin, and they go through Hebron. They reach the Wadi Eshkol, and they cut down a single cluster of grapes, which they carry back to the people, and pomegranates and figs, just when you want to bring back some snacks for everybody. And so then they travel the end of 40 days, they return. Remember the number 40, that's going to be important, right? So 40 days happen, and they scout out the land. They come back, they go straight to Moses. Actually, it says, Vayelchu vayavo. They go and they come to Moses and Aaron and all the Israelite community at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran. And this is what they say. The spies, actually 10 of the 12 spies, say, yes, indeed, this is a land, the land of Israel, flowing with milk and honey, like we've been told. Also, we have all this delicious fruit, too. We have grapes and pomegranates and figs. But, here's the but, there's a but. Oh, thank you. Hi, Andy. Shabbat Shalom. But the people who live in this land are powerful. Their cities are well fortified. We saw Anakites. We saw Amalekites, the Negev. We saw Hittites, Jebusites. There are peoples standing between us and entering the land, right? And so they get worked up. And Caleb tries to quiet down the people, because you can imagine hearing all this, the people are quite alarmed. And Caleb says, let us go up. Oleh na aleh, go up to this land and take possession of it. And he says, before the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King, Caleb famously says, Yachol nuchal, we shall overcome. We're going to get there. But the 10 spies says, no, we can't attack the people, for they're stronger than we are. And they spread this throughout the community. And they said that the country that we traveled through and scouted is one that devours its settlers. Not a good place to go, not a safe place to go. All the people we saw are huge. We saw Nephilim, we saw giants there. And Kahakavim, we felt like we must have looked like grasshoppers, this big, to these giant people, right? And so the community gets worked up to a frenzy by this. Can you imagine this, what they're doing? And they confront Moses and Aaron, because that's what Jews do, right? They confront the leaders. And they say, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if we might die here in the wilderness. Why is God taking us to a land just to die by the sword from these people that are standing in our way? Our wives and children will be carried off. It would be better for us to go back to Egypt. And they said to one another, let us find a new leader to lead us backwards to Egypt. And Moses and Aaron, left feeling bereft, fall on their faces, which means they kind of leave it up to God at this point. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Yefuneh, they exhort the people, and they say, the land is ma'od, not just good, very good. And if God is pleased with us, that God will lead us into the land, this land that flows with milk and honey. Lo tira, have no fear, be not afraid. For the peoples that stand in our way, they'll fall into our hands, because God is with us. Have no fear of them. As the whole community then threatened to throw stones at Joshua and Caleb for speaking up, then God's presence appears at the Ochel Moed, the tent of meeting. And God said to Moses, how long will these people spurn me, and how long will they have no faith in me? I will strike them with dever, with pestilence. We'll talk about that word in a second. And disown them. And I'll make you a nation. So I'll wipe them all out from Abraham, the people descended from Abraham. And then I'll create a whole new people descended from you. We'll be the Mosaites, or the Mosarians, right? We'll be the Moses people. But Moses says, no, when the Egyptians, from whose midst you brought us out of, hear that this happened, They will tell the inhabitants of the land, now they have heard that you, O Lord, in the midst of the people, appear in plain sight, and you go before them. But if you do this thing, if you destroy the people, then they'll say, it must be because this God was powerless to bring the people into the land that God had promised them. So what will all the other nations say about you? Right? So, yeah, good observation, Gloria. Therefore, I pray, let my Lord's forbearance be great. So don't be so hasty. Don't act out in anger. Remember the flood? Don't do another flood, okay? Don't do that. Don't destroy everybody. The Lord, slow to anger and abounding in kindness, forgiving iniquity and transgression. These are the words we say, by the way, on festivals when we open the ark to take the Torah out. We include this. Pardon, I pray, the sins of this people, according to your great kindness, as you have forgiven the people ever since Egypt. You've always been forgiving, right? Mary, right? Shabbat Shalom. And the Lord said, I'll pardon them. Salachti kivarecha, which is what we say on Kol Nidre, by the way, after we say Kol Nidre, we say, we speak for God in a sense, I pardon you as you have asked. But God's not finished yet, right? God says, let's see, my presence and the signs that I performed in Egypt and the wilderness, those who have tried my patience these many times and have disobeyed me shall see the land that I promised to their fathers. None of those who spurn me shall see it. But my servant Caleb, because he was imbued with how do I say it here? Ruach Acheret, a different type of spirit has Caleb, and remain loyal to me. Caleb I'll bring into the land, and his offspring, his children. Now the Amalekites and the Canaanites occupy the valleys. Start out then tomorrow and march into the wilderness by the Sea of Reeds. Remember the Sea of Reeds? That's the sea that parted from the Exodus story. And the Lord spoke further to Moses and Aaron. How much longer shall this wicked community keep speaking against me, God says. Very well, I have heeded the incessant muttering of the Israelites against me. So, as I live, I will do to you just as you have urged me. In this very wilderness shall your carcasses drop. So you're not going to go into the land, people who rose up, who doubted me, God. Of all you who are recorded in your various ages, from ages 20 and up, you have muttered against me. No one of you shall enter the land, except Caleb and Joshua and their offspring. You shall bear punishment for 40 years. Remember the number 40? I said it was going to be important. 40 years that you scouted the land, a year for each day that the spies were scouting out the land of Canaan, the land of Israel. Thus I will do to all the wicked band that is banded together against me, God, in this very wilderness, they shall die to the last person. As for the men whom Moses sent out to scout out the land, those who came back and caused the whole community to mutter against God by spreading the fear and doubt about entering the land, those who spread this about the land died of plague, of dever, pestilence, by the will of God. Of those, again, only Joshua and Caleb survive and go on. Okay, so they move out after that. So, very powerful narrative. Really nothing to stop in. But a couple of points I want to make on this. Number one, chapter 14, verse 1 says, the whole community broke out into loud cries. Vayivku ha'am, the people cried. Where have we heard that word before? I've heard it several times. If you think back to the Haftarah for Rosh Hashanah about Abraham's maidservant Hagar, who takes her son Ishmael away because Sarah will not have them in her sight with her child Isaac. So she demands, and Abraham sends them into the wilderness. And Hagar they're exhausted, they're hungry, and Hagar cries out to God to save them, to come to their aid. Also, after he realizes that he's not going to get the blessing from his father that was due to him as the firstborn, Esau cries out as well. Same word, vayivku. And also it's used when Jacob first lays eyes on Rachel. So I go on, chapter 14, verses 2 through 4. It says, all the Israelites, again, rise up against Moses and Aaron. If only we had died in the land of Egypt, the whole community shouted at them. If only we might die here in the wilderness. Why is God taking us out here just to die on our way into the land, or even before? It'd be better for us to go back to Egypt. Let us find a new leader. So obviously there's a very pervasive feeling of hopelessness at this point on the feeling of the community, spread by or inflamed by the report of the 10 spies. So what fuels hopelessness? What fuels hopelessness? And again, you can Facebook Live me, chat box, or admin, ADMIN, at shaloha.com, and share your thoughts with the world. So what fuels hopelessness, and what fuels hope? Because you have 10 spies representing hopelessness. They're in the hopelessness camp. And then you have Caleb and Joshua, who are the hope, or the people who fuel hope. So what's the difference? So doubt and despair, but what fuels that? What moves it forward? What gives it life? What makes it grow? What does hopelessness grow from? What does hope grow from, for that matter? Oh, we paid our dues. All right. Yeah, in a sense, where is your focus? Where is your focus on being hopeless? Oh, years of failure can fuel hopelessness? Okay. A realistic look at the world without faith in God, that's a big one. Yes, okay. Right? That people lose faith or fall out of faith with God. Depression, okay. And when you're hopeless or depressed, are you looking forward or backwards? If you're feeling hopeless or depressed, are you looking towards the past or towards the future generally? And if you're looking at the past, feeling alone. Okay, yes, that's true. And that also goes with losing faith or doubting the power of God's presence. You are really feeling alone. Yeah, you're looking backwards. You're looking on the past. You're going backwards. You're in your focus, and you're looking at things. This is the way things are. You can't change them. That's it. End of story. But the people who have hope, right? Vision for the future. Beautiful, Lynn. You are focused on the future, tikva, hope, and potential. And that's what Caleb and Joshua represent, as opposed to the other spies. Yeah, looking at the future. Now, I mentioned this thing about pestilence. God talks about dever. I'm going to, bring a plague upon the people. Yeah, you're frozen when you're depressed. You're not able to move ahead, right? So that's really where they're stuck. And in fact, the spies, they want to take people, and the people want to go back to Egypt. They want to go backwards. They don't want to go forwards to the land of Israel. They want to go back. Because they just think that this is the way it's going to be, and they can't handle that. They'd rather be back as a life of slavery. Because they know that life. They don't know what's ahead. Anyway, where have we heard the word dever or pestilence? I'll give you a hint. It's your Passover Seder. You have your cup with your wine or juice. You take your spoon, your finger, you go, dever, and you put out a little wine or juice. Because it's one of the plagues, right? It's one of the plagues that God brought upon the Egyptians. Now, God could have destroyed completely the Egyptians, but God doesn't do that. God could have completely destroyed the children of Israel at this moment, but God doesn't do that. So the question is, why? Why doesn't God completely? Because God knows God could destroy everybody. Or most everybody. Shabbat Shalom Umedas, right on. Why doesn't God destroy everybody? In terms of looking back at Exodus with Egypt, or right now? Because what was the point of how did God want to get the divine presence out there, known to everybody during the time in Egypt, during the plagues, right? Because God wanted to demonstrate divine power through the plagues. That this was, God was a force to be reckoned with. And remember, Pharaoh's first reaction is, who is this God? I don't know this God. This isn't my God. Right. Oh, God made a breach before the flood. Right. Exactly. God promised not to destroy everything again. But also, God wants to get, if God destroys everything, God's not getting the power of God across to the world. Because there's no world. Same thing here. God wants to get, how does God want to get a point across to the Israelites now? God gives manna from the sky, water when they're thirsty, acts of love. That's how God wants the divine presence to be felt and known by the children of Israel, through acts of love. Right? But sadly, that doesn't, the people still, rise up against and doubt God's power. Right? So again, the plagues were a way to educate the Egyptians, because Pharaoh had disrespected God, again saying, I don't know this God. Who's this God? This God is nothing. And God says, Egypt will know me through the plagues, through these wonders I'm going to perform right now, the river turning to blood, etc., including Dever, including pestilence, meaning in this case it was to cattle, it was to livestock, it wasn't to people. But then God says something very powerful in the book of Exodus also. You will be my people and I'll be your God. Right? So the plagues were there to humble the Egyptians and Pharaoh. And the Israelites had already been humbled through slavery, hundreds of years of slavery. So God uses love with them. Right? God makes the bitter water drinkable. God parts the sea, et cetera, et cetera. And says, if you listen to me, children of Israel, I won't do what I did to the Egyptians. Instead, I will give you love and healing. But they test God constantly, over and over again. And this really gets to, provokes God's anger, poke the bear kind of thing. And then we have this dever, this threat to wipe. Hey, Maya, Shabbat Shalom, destroy everybody. Demonstrating, this understanding perhaps God is demonstrating his understanding of our weakness in not destroying. That's, God's learning as much about us as we learn about God's nature in this time. Remember, God, created this beautiful world, and then it was just, things were horrible. People treat each other horribly. It was chaos. It was not good behavior, to say the least. And then God brings the flood and starts over again, in a sense. So I think God learns from that too, that no, wiping out everything is not the answer. All right, you have to teach, you have to constantly communicate and work with these imperfect people. So again, we have this, but not everybody goes into this doubt and despair mode. Not Caleb, not Joshua, and they argue with the other spies. They speak up and they say, no. It's not as bad as you say it is. It's not hopeless. It's not unchangeable. God was there for us. The exodus from Egypt, God is here with us now. God will be with us as we enter the land, right? Now, it's interesting because what happens is you have 12 tribes. You have a mission about sending people out to see stuff, to report back. You have the place of Hebron. You have a fake news report about a deadly animal attack, or in this case, giants. And you have crying. Where have we heard this before? Back in the book of Genesis, we heard the same progression within another part of the Torah, having to do with 12 tribes, 12 sons of Jacob, the mission about sending someone out to see stuff and to report back in the area of Hebron. We have fake news about what they saw, and we have crying. And does anybody remember what this story was back in the book of Genesis? In the book of Bereshit, the first book of the Torah, towards the end of the first book of the Torah, does anybody remember? We have Jacob's 12 sons, representing 12 tribes. Jacob sends out one of his sons to meet up with his brothers, right? He sees what's going on. He reports back, or actually before he reports back, in the area of Hebron, he is taken away. The brothers report that he was killed by a wild beast. And they bring back his bloody coat. And his father is left just torn apart, crying. Right, the story of Joseph. And Joseph even says the word miraglim is used for the spies in this portion in Numbers. Back then, Joseph accuses his brothers of being miraglim, of being spies. So what was the consequence in each of these stories, each of these cases? The sin of Joseph's brothers selling him into slavery, lying to their father about him dying, and the sin of the spies who doubt their ability and God's ability to fulfill God's promise to get them into the land. What's the consequence from either story? Well, what happens ultimately after Joseph makes his way to Egypt, and then his brothers do? What happens to the children of Israel? Well, yeah, famine, okay, but ultimately, they become slaves. Our ancestors were slaves in Egypt, right? Oh, we have the capacity to defeat giants now. That's good, especially if you're a Dodger fan. Yes, and then in terms of the spies, there's going to be a wandering for 40 years, 1 year for every day that the spies were out. So in both cases, there's a delayed of the entrance to the promised land because of the actions on the part of Joseph's brothers, and now the spies and the community rising up against Moses, Aaron, and God. So, and in a sense, there was evil talk from the 10 spies. And in the Joseph story, Joseph's always telling on his brothers originally, which resulted in their hatred of him. So there's a lot of bad reports also involved in each story. But it's something very fascinating. If you go back to the list of the spies in chapter 13, verses 4 through 16, and again, you focus in on Caleb. Where's Caleb? Verse 4. Verse 6. Caleb is from the tribe of Judah. And Joshua, who's the other spy who speaks up against the group, or speaks out in the minority, he's from the tribe of Ephraim. Ephraim is the son of Joseph. So you have Joseph and Judah. Does anybody remember Judah's role in the story of Joseph and his coat and everything? Whose idea was it to sell Joseph into slavery? It was Judah. And who gets sold into slavery? Who gets taken to Egypt? Joseph. But now they're working together. They're working together on behalf of God and the Jewish people. So what does this teach us about the course of history, generation to generation? What did Caleb and Joshua do coming out of their roots as Judah and Joseph? What did they do to the pattern of the relationship between the two? Remember, these are tribes, so this is ancestry as well. But what did they do? In a sense, they changed the pattern in their relationship. And that also can give us great hope. That just because a relationship was like it was, doesn't mean that's the way it always has to be. Yes, events can change over time. And yes, hope is given to us by the example set, in this case by Caleb and Joshua, that they changed the course of Jewish history by changing the relationship between, in this case, Judah and Joseph. within that community. So it can be done. And think of any peoples in conflict historically. It doesn't mean that has to be the way it always has to be. And that's a great gift of hope. Yes, in fact, changes are afoot in Medina Israel, in the state of Israel, because after a very long tenure, it appears, although I'm not sure it's been finalized yet, that after 4 or 5 unsuccessful attempts to form a coalition government, that there is in the works through Naftali Bennett and his party, the Yamina party, to form a new coalition government, which will include not only Jewish but also Arab parties in coalition. Again, it's not a done deal. My understanding is, but it will replace Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So again, that may be a catalyst in changing relationships in the region. So let us hope. Yes, Chaim Herzog is the new president. That's right. Perception of spies and impressions, interpretations may differ from reality. That's a great point. That perception is not necessarily reality, because where does the perception come from? What impacts our perceptions of things? That's a great point, because let's see what I want to say. Oh, okay. So remember I told you, or in verse when the spies come back. When they come back, verse 20, I want to say 26. Was it 26? Yes. Vayelchu vayavohu. 2 verbs. It says the spies literally, they went and they came to Moses. Why did they go and come to Moses? Why don't they just use one verb? They came to Moses or they returned to Moses. But the Torah has two words there, 2 verbs. Right? So why? What's the purpose of it? And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, very, iconic Rabbi, think of the Kabbalistic movement, the Zohar. Anyway, he says that that the going and coming means they actually went. Yes, I know, Diane, you get the credit for it. They went with bad reports in their minds about what they were going to see before they came back. They went out with that mindset. That was their perception, and they came back to make it reality for the people. Their perception of this place. Right? So, and we're not that different at times, right? Because in our relationships, in our work life, very often we see and miss things contrary to what we perceive or believe right in front of us. And the message is that, to see the land of milk and honey, you have to let go of some preconceived ideas of what this land is. Hi, Dick. Shabbat Shalom. Yeah, perception bias, right. So if you go out thinking, or if you go thinking this is not going to be good, then you're probably going to come out of that experience saying, it's not good. Perception is very powerful. And it's borne out by this portion of Torah. Right? A couple of other things. Oh, this is one. Okay. So the sin, the consequence for the spies and the people who joined them in their despair and doubt and speaking out against Moses and Aaron, doubting God, wanting to get a new leader to take them back to Egypt. What was actually their sin? What was so horrible that it would prohibit an entire group of people, a large group of people, from ever reaching the destination of the land of Israel? What's the lesson here for us? Yes, true. Perception bias is something that we need to be mindful and aware of. But what was so terrible? What did they do that was so horrible that it would deserve this consequence? Now, again, as has been noted, yes, losing faith in God is here. Oh yeah, loss of faith. There you go. Right on. That's there. Oh, that they were still very much in slave mode. Remember, they've only been out of Egypt for, they were in Sinai for a year, so I don't know, give it a year plus. They wanted to return to what they knew because, again, you can take well, you can't, you can take the Israelites out of Egypt, but you can't necessarily take Egypt out of the Israelites. That it's hard to get there. Oh, perhaps demagogues. Okay, Jonathan, that's an interesting way to look at it too. The demagoguery that was going on with the reports and fomenting all this anxiety. But so yes, loss of faith, right? That's definitely one. The Kutzker Rebbe though has a different take on this. Remember the spies say that the people there were extremely large. They were like the Shaquille O'Neal walking or whatever, basketball player or whatever have you. And to them, our self-image was that we were like grasshoppers to them. We were nothing. We were little nothings. And that was the sin, according to the Kutzker Rebbe, Menachem Mendel, of the spies. When they said we looked like grasshoppers to them. So, what's with that? What makes that such a big sin? To be so focused on what I think I look like to other people. What should we care about how we appear in the eyes of other people? Yeah, not open to change or having faith. Yeah, that's a biggie. But what about this? What about this grasshopper observation, right? What about it? Being focus on self and not the greater purpose that they had. Oh my gosh, I'm again, talk about being paralyzed. Can you imagine if you walk out of the house and all you're thinking about is how people are perceiving me? How is that going to go for you in terms of your daily life? Shabbat Shalom, Simon. How is that going to work in your everyday? If you're so concerned about how you think you appear to others, how you think you appear to others. Oh, sorry. Did I lose you? Yes, I see. Yes, Diane. Thank you. I think I saw one before. That's it. Yeah, we're creating God's image, right? We're creating God's image. So what need you worry about how you think you look to other people? They felt very small. And that goes against the idea that we each created the image of God. And Diane, if you want to repost your comment, thanks. So my comments are going fruitfully. Anyway, thank you. Yeah, that's it. So this is. It took me a while to try to wrap my mind around this one. This is further from the Kutzker Rebbe. So on this idea of being so centered on what your perception you think that other people have of you. This is what the Kutzker Rebbe said. He said, if I am because I am, and you are because you are, then I am I and you are you. Right? We're each who we are. You do you, I'll do me. That's kind of the philosophy here. But if I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I, and you are not you. So if you're so concerned about how others are perceiving you, then you're no longer able to be, to live your truth, who you are. Right? That gets skewed. You get pulled off center from that. Let's see. It's problematic when worship leaders, without using one's own judgment, blindly follow people. Yes. Because we all have a set of beliefs, right? And belief is very powerful. It forges, it molds you in how you act or how you relate to other people. Let's see. Yeah, small people think small. Being content limits. Oh, being content limits the growth. Right. If you're content, just same status quo, are you still growing? Are you still opening to what you're experiencing and sort of your interactions with other people or ideas or what have you? God's image. Questions. If you're so concerned about other people's perceptions of you, especially if you're feeling small, are you questioning God's judgment in creating us? Or you? That's a very profound question and thought. Yeah. So, and also, maybe the Israelites, our ancestors, were not permitted to enter the land right away because they just simply weren't ready. Because this was a sign to God that they're not there yet. They're just not there yet, right? They have to really take off the shackles of their time as slaves, and they haven't done that yet. And so that's going to be important. So, what did it also say about the people doubting God's presence or power? Oh, it's not that it's not good to be content. You should, but does that contentment is, it's like anything else. It's like, how do you balance that contentment with wanting to grow? And growth, typically, to me, at least in my mind, doesn't come out of just being, satisfied and I'll just stay here. I'm okay. Not wanting to venture out in any way. And being in an uncomfortable place, because does growth come from a comfortable place or a place of somewhat being in discomfort? Yeah, the people needed to mature. They needed time. They weren't there yet. And they didn't get it. But they were fearful. They thought they were alone. And Caleb and Joshua said, no, there's hope in the promise that God made to us and a confidence that we can take from that. And if you think about the 23rd Psalm, it says, I fear no harm, for you are with me. I mentioned last night the prayer Don Olam. At the end, it says, you are my God, I will not fear. And when you lie down at night and you close your eyes, that's a very comforting thought. I'll be content but verify. That's cute. Thank you, Larry. So the generation that left Egypt was definitely broken from their life as slaves. And they were still plagued, evidently, with more on the fear side than the hope side. Yeah, you have to take a leap out of the comfort zone to grow. There you go. I come to believe that. I'm not sure it's easy to grow if you're comfortable. We've been very preoccupied with safety over the last 15 months, and rightfully so with COVID. But at the same time, is life a thing about safety? I mean, before COVID, there were plenty of times where you can feel or actually be in an unsafe situation. But hopefully not an extreme. But I mean, discomfort and being out of your comfort zone can definitely foster growth. Diane, much is lost in translations as impressions and perceptions are sometimes personal and left. So where do those perceptions come from? Do they come from our belief? Because, people who say, I don't believe in God, or I'm not a believer. Well, everybody believes in something, right? Where do those beliefs come from? How do they impact us? Because everybody believes something. Each of us has our own belief system. Again, where does it come from? How does it impact our experience and the world? Keep the course of directions you've been instilled with. Okay, stay the course. Jews grew up and still need time to flourish. There's no end in sight. Some people need God to believe. Yeah, that's true. And at the end will be. And again, it's I take comfort from the presence of God, and you know what? I have times in my life before Hawaii where I was in a city with millions of people, but at times I would feel alone. But that's changed the course, and I thank all of you in Temple Emmanuel and Hawaii, and that's instilled this to me, knowing personally or feeling that I'm not alone, that we are never truly alone, because we get access to the divine, or commune with the divine. Beliefs come from family, friends, our own experiences, our environment we lived in or were raised in, our community or family, from our education, from our faith, from community. That's a good. So beliefs really have a lot of origins, or a lot of ways that we get them, and they're not all the same, right? But do they have a role in our decisions in life? Most definitely. It sounds like we're saying that there's a higher purpose to live than simply survival. Yeah, if you just work on survival, that's a great thing for a reality show called Survivor, but is that really the end all and be all in life? Is that what we want? Just to survive? I believe in the Yankees. All right, thank you. No, they'll come. That's funny. Thank you, Larry. Yeah. So our belief system really is very impactful, and it also plays into how we react to things, situations. It's more important to realize that there is that which is known, that which is not known, and imagine and be creative. That's true. And there's an unknown or mysterious mystery aspect or component to life, and you can be scared of it, or you can be excited about it. Surprises. I'm a Taurus. I don't really like surprises as much, but sometimes even I like a surprise now and then. Good surprise, possible. There may be growth when there is a wilderness of doubt and questioning. So in the wilderness, the people, doubt and question because they can't really see. You're absolutely right. But let me ask you something. Are the people really wandering? Were the people wandering? What is wandering? I heard a rabbi today talking about comparing, being in the mall. Hey, Susie, Shabbat Shalom. And the sign you see like an Alamana shopping center or any other mall where you have where the stores are, and then you have the big thing that says "You are here," right? Well, the people knew where they were, and they knew where the destination was, where they were going, especially the scouts having gone. So, but they were going to be just traveling about for 40 years before getting there. And they knew that a generation or a good portion of the people would die off and not actually go into or reach the destination. So they weren't necessarily wandering. They kind of knew what they were doing. They were just going to be traveling, right? And also, it's interesting. I'll get to that in a second. Well, I'm going to finish up now because I think I got about 10 minutes. Yeah, okay, 8 minutes left. The media can influence our beliefs. That's true. Social media can influence our beliefs. There's a lot of different things vying for our belief system, right? Or be part of it. We aim for the stars to achieve small gains on a regular basis. Yeah, right. Life would be boring if we knew from beginning to end. Right. Exactly. Every day you don't know what's going to happen. Do you really want to know what's going to happen every day? What kind of life would that be? How exciting would that be? How much lending to growth would that be? They are not wandering, they're seeking, searching for themselves as a free people. And maybe also, even if they didn't reach the land, the people who were going to die in the wilderness, even they knew what they needed to work on. And they had 40 years to do that, to achieve it. So that when they went to Olam Haba, they went to the next world, they would be much more enlightened along the way. The Israelites were being led to learn and endure. Okay. The people were students in a good school. They were allowed to question and learn. That's right. That's another thing about questioning. And questioning, whoops, what did I just do? Questioning our belief system, and not just having it, in stone or in cement, just stay the same. Because do people's belief systems necessarily stay the same throughout their lifetime? In many, I would probably say in a majority of cases, I don't know, but I would think that there is some change involved because we learn, we grow, and that happens. Speaking of learning and growing, I want to wrap up with the last chapter, which has 2 commandments in it. The first commandment, this is chapter 15, all right, has miscellany of laws, but 2 of them in particular. The first one, it says, let me go. Chapter 15. I want to get to the challah. Where's the challah? Okay. When you enter the land, this is chapter 15, verse 19, and you eat of the bread of the land, you shall set aside some as a gift to the Lord. As the first yield of your baking, you shall set aside a loaf as a gift. You shall set it aside as a gift, like the gift from the threshing floor. You shall make a gift to the Lord from the first yield of your baking. Right? So some people actually take a piece of the challah they're baking and put it aside in reference to this mitzvah, this commandment. Right? And the last one is about the tzitzit. And I don't have a talit if I wanted to have one with me, but we're running out of time here. But anyway, this is, the Lord said to Moses, this is chapter 15, verse 37. It's the very, very end. It says, speak to the Israelite people, instruct them to make for themselves fringed tzitzit on the corners of their garments, like the talit. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner, and look at it and recall all the commandments and observe them, so that you shall not follow your heart, lo taturu, and eyes in your lustful urges. Thus shall you remind to observe all God's commandments and be holy to God. So first of all, it's interesting because if you take traditional settings, who does the challah baking? And who does the wearing of a talit, a prayer shawl? This is, I'm thinking Orthodox right now, okay? Anyway. We are constantly wandering in life, but we reach moments of realization and contentment and consolation. And our lives are... Right, we have moments, good and not so good, happy and painful. And that's what makes life worth living. Right? So speaking of living, we have challah and tzitzit. We have challah traditionally baked by women, not always. Rabbi Rob from Kauai makes a really awesome challah. And we have wearing tzitzit, a talit, right? And that's usually, traditionally by men, but Reform and conservative, women too. But anyway, it also really makes for a, who's going to, where are you going to bake challah or wear tzitzit? Probably in a place which you feel at home in. And that's where this land is going, the promised land, the land of Israel for the people. So it really speaks to that, right? And then, last but not least, the language is very interesting because the words taturu are used in the command to send out the spies, right? So, and what does latour sound like? It sounds like a tourist. So basically we're saying don't be tourists. Because if you're a tourist, do you have a deep connection or vested interest in the place you're visiting? No, you get on the bus, you go see it, you get off the bus, you see something, you get back on the bus, and you go. And especially in a hot place when you're in an air-conditioned bus with the tinted windows, and you probably, you don't, and the scouts really didn't exhibit a deep connection to the land. They went in, they looked, they went out, and they said, no way, we can't live here, this is not home. And also, zonah, or zonim, is also used in the relation to the scouts, meaning faithlessness. Actually, the zonah is a prostitute. So, it says here about the tzitzit, it says, look at the fringes so you don't, lo taturu, don't be a tourist when it comes to using your heart. Don't just love superficially. Don't just be superficial when it comes, in the tourist case, to your connection with God, your connection with others. Really be invested, right? And don't whore after your urges, right? Because what I want to leave. Rabbi David Bondauer writes, human love and desires energize and inspire us. Conversely, though, they can completely knock us off track and make us do really unwise and hurtful things. Right? So, if you live just by your heart alone, and how and your eyes rather alone, if you look at the seat, it's reminding you what's behind, what you choose to do or the actions you take. Judaism is a faith of action, but what goes into the actions that you do? Is there some deeper, greater purpose to them? And that's what the seat on our talit, our prayer shawls, are there to remind us of. Right? Also, when we say the Shema, we gather them together, right? And that's the feeling of community. And that's also a visual reminder for us of the fact that we are not only individuals, but we're individuals within a community. And so it's a beautiful way to end this portion and to be more aware of our preconceived notions and perceptions in life and how they affect and impact our decisions. And also when it comes to the desires and urges of our hearts and eyes, to not necessarily just rush ahead without taking a moment to think, is this really part of a greater purpose that I have, or belief system I have, or what have you, or serving the greater community? Yes, tikkun olam, that's the way to say it. Thank you, Gary. Thanks, Dan and Gerald. Yes, not a gift. You have to earn it. That's true. The scouts should have treated their mission as a very holy one, since this is the land as a gift from God. Right? They didn't do that. They accept. One doesn't wear a talit. They accept and they display. We actually put it on. We have a blessing for putting on. We make a commitment. Hopefully, we're feeling wrapped in a beautiful light, a beautiful presence of God and of the community around us when we're praying together. So yes, we're individuals within a community, and that makes it really life very interesting, especially for a Reform rabbi. Thank you so much, everybody. As always, beautiful, beautiful hour. Next week, we're going to move into more tsuras for poor Moses with Korach and his followers. And if you think that the spies were something, where do you see all the mishigas that goes on next week? Until then, Rabbi Ken saying, look for me sometime popping up with Havdalah. And I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your Shabbos, and take that beauty and that joy into the week to come. And most of all, I wish you good health, and also don't be too comfortable. Step out of your comfort zone for a while, okay? Thank you. Yeah, great. Thank you, Jonathan. You make it great. Thanks, everybody. Rabbi Ken saying Shaloha, and Shabbat Shalom.